Say yes every day to the world and to your heart. Open up your eyes and let your spirit start. Say yes to the dreams you hold inside. Let your soul be your guide.
Are you looking for an AMC that is dedicated to your success? Well, look no further than Appraisal Nation. They provide seamless residential and commercial valuations in every county across America with the fastest turn times and lowest revision rates. From single family homes to commercial properties, they have you covered. Trust Appraisal Nation as your reliable partner for all valuation needs. Visit appraisalnation.com and remember, Appraisal Nation is dedicated to your success because we are stronger together. Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Wednesday Wisdom. Today, I am joined by the incredible John Jurkovich. He is the founder of CEO 1440 and the Mortgage Broker Builder. Thank you so much for being with us today, John. And my very first question is, CEO 1440, what does that mean and symbolize?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is something that goes back a really long time ago. I have this belief that all of us are the CEO of you Inc., right? You're the CEO of your world. And 1440 is the number of minutes in a day. So it's just a constant reminder, every single minute you have, be intentional. You are the CEO of all of those minutes. So I'm the CEO of my 1,440 minutes each day. And it's kind of just a creed or a motto that I live by day in, day out.
I love that. Recently I watched the documentary of Quincy Jones. And Quincy, incredible documentary. I mean, that man is just a genius, right? In every which direction. And he said something that I think it was, what do we get? 86,000 days, like on average, right? If you live to an average. And he was like, I'm actually beyond those days. He says, so I lived my whole life knowing that I only get that many number of days. And now I'm on borrowed time. He's like, so now I'm even thinking more serious that I'm on borrowed days at this moment. So just piggybacking off what you just said, that is powerful. And if we all just realize the only thing that we really can control is ourselves, right? We can only control what we do with that amount of time that we have. And that kind of leads me into what we speak about on Wednesday Wisdom is we are always learning lessons and we are gaining insights and wisdoms every single day. And the first question I'd love to know from you is, what would you attribute one of the best pieces of advice or teaching that you ever received, whether it was from a book or a person? We'd love to hear, what was that?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. And it actually goes back. So I grew up in Northern Michigan, grew up in an area where we were like, everybody was kind of relatively like, I wouldn't say poor, like growing up, you didn't know it, but you just didn't have like a lot of like super successful people. And I got into my late 20s and I started at a small little company. I actually have their stuff here. I brought in their onboarding package.
Wow.
From back in the day, right? It was a small company called Rock Financial. This is all dittos and stuff with typos, but this is now Quicken Loans or Rocket Mortgage.
Wow.
And when I got there, I was kind of my first exposure to like high achieving people. And they had this thing called their isms, right? Which was their kind of like operating principles. And growing up my whole life, I didn't really have anything like that. So it wasn't one thing, it was a combination of things, but they had these isms. It was kind of like their rules to live by. And you sat through this thing and I started seeing these really highly successful people living by this like kind of code that was different than the code I knew. And so it was a combination of those things. And somebody said something in our training class that really like, it stuck with me. I don't remember who said it, but it had to do with like, ultimately like back to the 1440 thing, control the things you can control. And I sat back and looked at it and said, okay, I have a degree. And prior to going there, I went there to gather sales experience, was doing it for 1 year, right? 26 years later, still doing mortgage stuff. But the piece of information was control what you can control. I looked at it and said, I got a degree in, exercise physiology. I'm a weightlifter, knuckle dragger. Like I'm not as smart as these other people around me. They have business degrees. Like there's all these things that I'm not, but I can outwork them. So I just
Right.
kind of, it was the beginning of really like self-accountability happened there inside of that class. And I'm just like, okay, I can't do these other things, but I can take control. So the combination of a core operating principle and just beginning to take control of my life. And one other thing that happened there, they started talking about the people that you associate with, like the 5 people that you hang out with will influence you more than, anyone else. You're the combination of them. And that really that was the beginning of kind of the changing of the guard of all of my friends. There was, people in my life I started to kind of level up the people in my life, but it all happened in that melting pot spot there. So that's
Wow.
what
So many powerful statements there, right? That I want to kind of go through. The first one, someone said this to me once and it really hit me, and you just said it in a different way, but you can't be what you don't see. That's what you said, right? You said that I grew up in Northern Michigan, and listen, hey, you didn't have any wants, right? Everyone was kind of a similar situation, and you were like, okay, life is good, all is grand, until all of a sudden you were exposed to something that you hadn't seen before. All of a sudden you were like, wait a minute, there's a little bit more here. There's more that I possibly can reach for and stretch for and learn from. And you were exposed to a whole nother environment, right? And you think about how powerful that is in our life, right? That every day we have that ability. And then who you surround yourself with. We've all heard that expression. We all know the expression about the 5 people, right? But how often do people not do that? How often do people say, yeah, but they're my good buddies and they're my good friends and they're my family, right? These are my family that maybe are not allowing me to level up and get to that next stage, right? So what I'd love to know from you, you've learned these isms, you were exposed to this higher unlimited power and opportunity. How did you take that and then apply it? How did you take those principles and apply it to the rest of your life, professionally and personally?
Well, it all ties into wisdom, right? What you don't know, you don't know. And then right, like you don't hear about peer pressure in 70-year-olds. Like nobody,
Right.
there's a lot of peer pressure no, it's because you've got the wisdom that you've moved past the peer pressure and you now are kind of operating on your own principles. You go from thousands of friends, or hundreds of friends in high school to a handful of friends. And I think that just how I apply things in my life is that was kind of the first time that I said, okay, there's something else out there. What else don't I know? And I've read, hundreds, I don't know, it could be thousands of books. I don't watch sports. I listen to podcasts. I do different things. So I'm always like, I get my joy from gaining knowledge. So I don't know that there's one thing that I can draw from, but I can say that I know less at 50 than I did at 30. I now am more aware of that I'm wrong a lot more than I thought I was at 30. So I'm maybe more self-aware that the way that I want to do things, there's not a right and a wrong. There's lots of ways of doing it. So I just think that I approach the world a little bit differently. And I've also become very good at not looking for instant gratification. There's another thing that I brought here that this is called my Project 100.
Okay.
And you can't really see it, but it's like, you can.
Oh yeah.
Shows like Jack, Cooper, June, Natalie.
Yeah.
I went through, I had a kid from a second marriage a little over 8 years ago. And at doing that, I kind of started to reevaluate my life, took all the things that are up to there. And I said, what do I really want? Well, I want to live to be 100 plus.
Okay.
And so all the knowledge, all the isms, all the books I read, it all moves towards, it's not like one thing. It's about living a successful life. Like we don't just want to live, you want to live and prosper and have a great life. So all of my actions today are kind of based on this Project 100. And then I can tell you goals. I don't know how many people have goals at 100. I want to be able to jump off the back of a boat alone and still swim.
Yep.
I love going hunting. I want to still be able to hunt, right? So I have all these goals. I want to have a great grandkid run at me and be able to grab them, pick them up overhead. So I'm actually training today every day. Like when I go to the gym, I'm not trying to bench press 400 pounds anymore. It was important to me 20 years ago. Now I want to do activities that lead to my goal. That's, 40 some years out. So I think that that's the biggest thing. All of those things, they compounded, and 1 + 1 isn't 1 with knowledge. It's 1 + 1 is 3. 1 + 1 + 1 is 8. And you start compounding your skill set in life. And right, that's really where I'm at today. Is it's a progression of all these things, as are you, right? I mean, I know your story. You're not, there's not one thing, you're a combination of all of them, right? That lands you on the cover of magazines and stuff behind you. So it's really, we're a melting pot of all of our experiences.
Number one, I could not have possibly expressed that as well as what you just did. But the whole time you were saying it, I literally inside of my brain was going, yes, yes, yes. Like I am so on board with exactly what you were saying. And when you're 30, you honestly can almost not even comprehend what you just said, but as you are maturing and gaining wisdom, you do realize what you just said about bench pressing 400 pounds. That's not important anymore. What is important is us to be able to have muscle and strength, to your point of being able to lift your great grandchild, not even your grandchild, right? So what you just said, number one, I love Project 100. I think that is the most phenomenal thing I have heard, because most people, yeah, you might be like, when I'm 50, when I'm 55, whatever, but people are so scared of aging. That's a whole nother concept. We could go on for days in that discussion, right? Because people are fearful. We are fearful of the stories you hear and the things like that. But we all know, and listen, I'm an addict of podcasts too. So I'm sure me and you are listening to some of the same ones. It's proven, and I just heard this on a podcast a few days ago, no one dies of old age. There is no such thing as dying of old age. You die because an organ stops, working properly, or you have an ailment of some sort. But there's no such thing as dying of old age, right? So if we can medically and physically and mentally keep ourselves ahead, then yes, the odds of that happening, right? Who knows what's going to happen in the future with technology and robotics and AI and all this other stuff. We haven't even thought about what's going to come in the next 20, 30, 40 years. So the fact of whether it's our bodies, our minds, or our businesses, right? Okay, let's wrap it back to business. Every single day, we need to be investing in that future. Whether it's getting to a position, whether it's getting to a certain production, whether it's getting to starting your own company, whatever that dream is, it's exactly the same as Project 100. It's exactly the same thing. What exercises are we doing? What actions are we taking? What movement forward? So, John, you just dropped a huge nugget there that everyone needs to realize, that they should be taking that and applying that in every aspect of their life. Even our relationships. You have to make investment into our relationships, both personally and professionally. That takes dedication and concentration, right? To your point, I'm the same way. I don't watch television. I don't listen to the news. I don't do any of that stuff. Books, podcasts, conversation, constantly feeding your brain, and learning and learning and learning. I love it, love it, love it. All right. So, John, huge nuggets, great value. Everybody, before I go to the last question, John, tell everybody what you're doing right now. How are you taking some of this insight and things that you're doing in this value and applying this to our industry?
Yeah. So after 26 years working primarily for IMBs and different companies, and I'd started a couple of different very successful brokerages kind of along the way. About a year ago, I saw all of these mortgage bankers that had been working and underneath companies, and they'd never really acquired any wealth, right? There's CEOs that have made a bunch of, but market goes down. And some of these, there was just a lot of people that they're 20 years in the business. They're still working for a paycheck month over month. And I saw a lot of them out hurting, doing different things. I had multiple people reach out to me like, John, I want to open a brokerage. So I started a company doing that very thing. We help bankers become brokers. So I say that now I'm in the B2B business, and I do essentially three things. And it's banker to better. So I help individual bankers get better. Better bankers, I help bankers then become brokers, and I help brokers become better. So it's really just a holistic approach of finding where you're at your spot in life. And everybody falls on the spectrum from the new person that just got their NMLS license to Dan Gilbert, right? Like that's the two ends of the spectrum. Everybody's someplace in between in that journey. And my whole thing is I want to push more people to the Dan Gilbert place of the world than the brand new newbie, and just help them along. And now that I'm in my 50s, right, I'm closer to 100 than to 0, really seeing people acquire wealth. And it's something that's like is important to me. And I don't launch people to become a broker. I don't help them become a broker and just get in business for it. I actually want to see that they survive and thrive. And so my job is to make sure that it's the right people. I turn away a lot of people. I say, you need to go and get some more skill set before you can go there. But I help bankers become brokers, brokers become better. It in a nutshell. And it's super exciting. It's fun. It's neat to see somebody make that transition to have their first LLC. So it's very rewarding. And it's growing fast. So
I love it.
A good spot to be.
And John, you just hit on something that I too have seen and recognized, and it kind of hurts my heart a little bit. Good people that are still, to your point, 20, 25, 30 years in this business, that are still working paycheck to paycheck without generational wealth. And that should not be the case at all. Not for, someone that has had these long-standing careers. So I appreciate you recognizing that and taking action to be able to apply your skills and your knowledge and your wisdom to be able to show them, because listen, this is a wonderful industry. It's fantastic. I owe so much to this industry and I love so many people within it. And all we want to see is good people to be able to take all these lessons, right? Look at all the lessons we have from financial literacy and building generational wealth through real estate, right? But yet we have so many people within our industry that after a couple of years of a bad market, they can barely survive. And that shouldn't be the case at all. So thank you for being part of the answer to be that. So thank you. All right. As we wrap up, we'd love to hear, John, what would be your piece of advice, something from you that you would like to share with our audience?
It would be skills would be the one word. And just because you're getting older or I'm getting older, I'm not saying you.
That's right. Age, remember, not everyone.
As I'm getting older and I see people out there, there is an underappreciation for the ability at any age to go out and learn new skills. And the more skills you have, the more leverage you can have. The longer the lever you have, the more weight you can move. And so you're not like, I hear people, I'm too old to do this, or I don't want, like, you're never too old to acquire new skills. And as you acquire new skills, your value in the market goes up regardless of your age. So take the time to, buy a course to do video editing, record yourself doing things. Do a role play of your sales calls, right? You've got to think about it like be Tom Brady and go about it like you're going pro every day in your business and constantly get better. And that's just a massive thing. And then to young kids, I've got a kid that's graduating from college. I tell all of his friends, he's at Johns Hopkins. They're all chasing money. How much can we make? And I tell them you got your whole life to make money. Go someplace, right? Like I talked about the change that I got from going to a Quicken Loans or Rocket Mortgage or whatever it was called back then. There's these skills that you can learn. So maybe you give up some income today to go work underneath a great place. And so you can acquire those skills that will serve you for life. So my piece of advice is don't undervalue a new skill, regardless of what it is. If you learn to play the guitar and you got 30 more years, you're great. Your grandkids will love that you can play a guitar. So add skills. It's all about our leverage.
So going right back to how we started this, where you spoke about CEO 1440, right? We are the CEOs of our lives. Every single one of us, no matter who we are, we get 1,440 minutes in our day, right? So choose wisely what we spend those 1,440 on, and never, ever underestimate the value of whether it's educating our brain, taking a new course, learning a new skill, whatever it is, or where we focus our attention. because it will make the difference of what that Project 100 looks like, right? In the future.
100%. I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, we're constantly building a brand, and you only realize the minutes you don't have when they're like fleeting or you lose somebody. Like us taking this time has an impact, right? And it lasts the rest of your life. Like right now, this minute is the most important minute of the rest of my life. And in 1 minute, that next one will be. So I think that people just need to be more intentional with their time, the things that they do, what they say, how they interact with people. You have to be intentional. And the unfortunate thing is, right, I didn't know it at 30. Starting to figure it out. Like, you don't catch these things. Like, you don't realize them until later on. Fortunate part for me, I'm going to live a really long time still.
That is right. You're only halfway.
Yeah, only halfway. Like, and once I get to 100, right? Like 110 is the next thing. So I feel confident about that.
Like I said, remember, there are babies that haven't even been conceived yet, that are going to be born, that are going to bring some crazy technology and some medical innovation that we haven't even thought of yet, right? I mean, all of that is in all of our futures. So yes, who knows, right, what that will look like. John, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Such great wisdom shared. Thank you for giving us a little bit of your precious time. We truly appreciate it, and we wish you all the best. And if anyone would like to find out information about Mortgage Broker Builder, how can they find you?
You know, the best way, I'm all over on LinkedIn. I have a website, themortgagebrokerbuilder.com. But if you just find John Jurkovich on LinkedIn, that's where I do the majority of my stuff. I post almost every single day, different things. So LinkedIn is a great spot, or you can find me online, or I'm John at CEO1440.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. I appreciate it.